All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. This, of course, is the big story that has come in from the Taiwan elections, where the vote count is still ongoing, but the results are already out. Lai Ching-te of the Democrat Progressive Party has actually won the national elections in Taiwan. Lai, remember, had been handpicked by the former President Tsai Ing-wen when he was the vice president to succeed her. Meanwhile, the main opposition party, the Kuomintang's Hou Yu-ih, has conceded defeat in the elections. But these are live images that are being beamed straight out from Taipei, where the ruling party leaders are addressing the supporters. The ruling party supporters can now, of course, breathe a sigh of relief as the nail-biting finale has technically inched towards its end, where the results are out. The vote count is still on, but this is now just a formality. There were cheers and hugs as the results, of course, poured in all through the day. And it, of course, showed that the ruling party, the DPP, which has made a mark for itself because of its fiercely independent policy for an independent Taiwan. And this is what has, again, emerged victorious in these elections in an unprecedented third term straight for the DPP. The party has won more than 3 million votes in the crucial elections. Lai took the lead early in the vote count and held on to it, keeping the KMT and the TPP candidates at bay. Lai Ching-te is in fact going to be the next president of the island nation. And to tell us more as to what this election and the results, of course, mean, we're being joined by TVBS's reporter Dimitri Brues, who's joining us live at this moment from Taipei. Brues, this is a significant moment in Taiwan. The DPP's candidate, Lai, has emerged victorious. It was difficult to predict as to which way this election would have turned, but this is a resounding approval for the policies of the DPP, which in fact wants an independent Taiwan. What is the mood like there in Taipei?
Well, it's a strong victory for the ruling party and Lai Ching-te. It was a highly difficult election, very competitive. It was a three-way presidential race. Now, with a participation rate in the elections today at around 72%, it's about 3% less than 4 years ago. But still, it's a strong showing. The president won by more than almost 1 million votes, which is a pretty good score. To give you an example, about 4 years ago, President Tsai Ing-wen won by about 8 million votes. Now, today, the new president won by 4.2, 4.3 million votes. So it's a strong showing. It shows that the Taiwanese, the Taiwanese are behind his policies. And I don't know if you remember, his motto in the election was about choosing the right person and following the right path. So obviously the public, the Taiwanese, are behind their president. Mm-hmm. They believe he's right, and they're gone ready to follow the path of the new president.
And also, Bruce, the fact that the China factor had been such an important and an overarching factor in these elections. China had dubbed these elections as a choice between war and peace and a choice between prosperity and decline for Taiwan. But the people in Taiwan have chosen a candidate who's again going to be pursuing a policy of, being completely independent from China. How do you think this election result would be viewed inside the corridors of power in Beijing?
Well, the elections will have implications for the United States, for China, and of course for Taiwan. From the China side, it will also show China that Taiwan will, and the new president will follow in the footsteps of President Tsai Ing-wen. So the policies that she initiated over the past 8 years, he will obviously continue on the same path. So it will also, maybe it's an indication from China. They might wrongly believe actually, that China is also on the right path and they have to continue to strengthen themselves. So on the mid-long term, it's likely that tensions will continue to increase and not decrease. So that's the first thing we've learned from this election. The second thing is from the United States is the US will enter in it's an election year already. So for the US, it will be now, they will have to manage closely the US-Taiwan relations and see, we expect the new president to address the international media.
Right.
So it's very likely that the new president will address the media and maybe share his upcoming policies, his new plans. So according to Taiwan's constitution, the president is elected in January, but he will actually take office in May, on the 20th of May. So we still have a couple of weeks and months to go before he takes office, but we can expect again that he will start discussing with counterparts in the US and clearly explain his upcoming steps. The goal, I believe, will be to make sure that his election does not impact US-China relations. So on this path, it might take another couple of days, a week, to know more about this. And the third implications for Taiwan, it was a highly divisive election. So now it's also for the new president to reach out to the opposition parties and try to mend fences, because at the legislative yuan, the parliament, it's not clear yet whether the new president and the ruling party will have a majority. We might maybe know more in about an hour from now.
And also, Bruce, a lot of people would, of course, want to know about the issues on which the people of Taiwan have voted. To what extent do you think the China factor played its role? Do you think it was the China factor that dominated the choice that people have made, or is it, the domestic factors within Taiwan, which is in fact, made the people make their decisions about the candidate that they've chosen?
Well, China is in everybody's mind, but it's been like that since 1949. I think an important factor is in recent years, Taiwan's growing military might and his position in the region, China's position in the region in Southeast Asia. These, I think, have increased concern from Taiwanese voters. So China is an argument that politicians in Taiwan usually play against each other. But over the past few years, it was obvious that China is, moving in its own direction. And I think that kind of scared a lot of voters.
Absolutely indeed, Bruce. Do continue to stay on with us. Meanwhile, we have these live images that are being beamed straight out from Taipei, where the winning candidate is, of course, addressing his party followers. Let's listen into what is being said there.
First, we are telling the international community that between democracy and authoritarianism, we will stand on the side of democracy. The Republic of China, Taiwan, will continue to walk side by side with democracies from around the world.
第二个意义，台湾人民用行动成功抵御外部势力的介入，因为我们相信自己的总统自己选。
Second, through our actions, the Taiwanese people have successfully resisted efforts from external forces to influence this election. We trust that only the people of Taiwan have the right to choose their own president.
第三个意义，在三组候选人中，赖萧配得到最多的支持，代表国家会继续走在正确的路上，不会转向，更不会走回头路。
Third, in between three groups of candidates, we received the most support, meaning that the country will continue to walk on the right path forward. We will not turn around or look backwards.
我们要感谢蔡英文总统和执政团队的伙伴们，8年来尽心尽力，为台湾的改革与建设打下了深厚的基础。
We want to thank President Tsai and the entire governing team for their unfaltering efforts over the past 8 years. They have established a solid foundation for Taiwan's reform and development.
赖清德和萧美琴将在这个基础上加倍努力，让国家稳健前行，让人民过好日子。
On this foundation, Xiaobi Kim and myself, we will work even harder to move the country steadily forward and enhance the well-being of the people.
然而，在国会选举，民进党没有维持过半的席次，这代表我们努力不够，的确有要虚心检讨的地方。
On the legislative elections, the DPP did not hold on to a majority. This means that we did not work hard enough, and there are areas where we must humbly review and look back on.
选举结果告诉我们，人民期待有能力的政府和有效率的制衡。这新的民意，我们充分理解，完全尊重。
The elections have told us that the people expect an effective government as well as strong checks and balances. We fully understand and respect these opinions from the public.
面对新的国会结构，台湾必须走向沟通、协商、参与、合作的政治。我要在此表达：第一，我会深入研议两位对手的政见和主张，只要是福国利民、符合国家发展需要的，我都会纳入施政方针。
As for the new structure of the legislature, Taiwan must build a political environment of communication, consultation, participation, and cooperation. As a result, I hereby declare, first, I will carefully study the policies and positions of my two electoral opponents, as long as they bring benefit to the people and further our national development. They will be incorporated into my policy framework.
第二，未来的人事布局，我会秉持民主大联盟的精神，不分党派，用人为才，也欢迎各界推荐专业人才，一起为国家发展来努力。
Second, in terms of personnel appointments, I will act in accordance with the spirit of a democratic alliance by bringing in talent from different political parties. We will welcome recommendations from a variety of professional fields to work together for our national development.
第三，未来的施政，各党派有共识的议题，我们优先处理；还没有共识，也没有急迫性的，让我们搁置争议，持续沟通。
Third, in terms of future governance, we will prioritize issues that have consensus between political parties. On issues that have not yet reached consensus and are not urgent, we will work to set aside differences while maintaining clear lines of communication.
第四，期待解决的重大议题，例如劳保、健保的财务。
All right, so that is, of course, the winning candidate of this election addressing his followers. And we can, of course, one expects have more of the same in terms of the policy that the DPP will have. And Dimitri Brewis of the TVBS, a reporter from TVBS, he's still with us. Now, Brewis, we were just hearing the winning candidate there address his followers in Taipei. A lot of people would be watching this election, not just within Taiwan, but indeed around the world. And the question for which they would want an answer for is, do we now see more of the same in terms of policies? Because Tsai Ing-wen had made a reputation for herself in her last two terms as someone who was fiercely independent, was someone who would not bow down to Beijing. Can we expect Lai to, in fact, walk on the same footsteps as her?
Absolutely. I do believe we will see a continuity in the policies of President Lai Ching-te and President Tsai Ing-wen. For two reasons. The first one is that without a majority at the parliament, he will need to reach to the opposition parties and opposition figures to negotiate policy by policy, meaning that he won't have the ability to push for policies on his own. And that will, I believe, increase work at the legislature, but also bring the Taiwanese people together. So in this sense, even though there was a little bit of concern about his election, I think that the situation now tell us that we can expect more discussions with opposition figures and trying to reach a consensus before pushing for policies. And at the same time, my second point is that the president will be able also to continue to push for what they call the decoupling from the Chinese economy.
Right.
So for this, he will have the opportunity to move forward without the support from the legislature. He will be able to push for this, and maybe that could benefit other countries in the region, including Southeast Asia and India.
I think you've summed it up really comprehensively there. Thank you very much indeed, Dimitri Brewers, for joining us from Taipei and getting us all those updates there.
Thank you for having me.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.